Hello everyone, I guess hopefully you're having a wonderful day. We are back again with another PWCC weekly review. This one a special Memorial Day edition where I go through the top 100 soccer items auctioned off this week on the PWCC platform. As always, if you enjoyed the video, do make sure to leave a like, helps me, helps the channel, would appreciate it greatly. But with that said, let's go ahead and get on over there. Per usual, starting at the bottom and working our way up. This week we start at $120, which is a bit lower than it has been lately, but there's still some really good cards at the top, so we're not missing too much. To start, we have a 1949 Ben Barrack. Typically, you see a lot of 50s issues for him. He does stretch all the way back into the 30s, but 49 is somewhat early considering what we normally see on PWCC. That goes for 120. Looked on Toto, basically could only find one comp in 2018 for like 15 bucks raw, so is what it is. Couldn't really find much. Here we have a Thiago Silva treble, 2018. I've been trying not to look these up just because, you know, what do they say? If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all is typically the approach. But I did have some requests to go ahead and talk about these, so I will, just to see where they're at. Took a peek at comps, and last draw went for 41, and last PSA 9 went for 199 on a fixed price. It's probably a bit high, to be fair. I guess an SGC 6 before that went for 50. So, you know, feels like a light sale generally, but not a terrible sale either. 97-98 Michael Ballack here. This is a rookie and goes for 126 in a PSA 9, pop 1 of 6 and ungraded higher. I do like the sort of speckle refractor look that some of these stickers have from foosball in the 90s. This is my win at the auction. Didn't even really think it'd be in here, but the bar was a little lower than most weeks. Felt like this was a pretty good price at 126. This has always been a sticker that's been on my radar, but nothing that I was going to either go out and get a high grade or go out and overpay for. A PSA 7 is actually a pretty good grade. This is a pop 10 with like 15 higher, and there's like 100 total graded, so it's a top quartile grade. And to get it for 126 felt pretty good to me. There's been a PSA 4 with an eye appeal sticker that recently sold for like 90 on a best offer, and then PSA 6s seem to go between 90 and 150 to 200 at times, so 126 for a 7 felt like a really good deal, and it's always been a sticker that I have liked and wanted to get at some point. I sort of had a take that I like backgrounds on cards more than I like colors. Like, sure, colors are cool because we need them nowadays, but tell me that that's not amazing. Like, you know, Franco Baresi just hanging out in a field, a nice Italian pitch, and you got the mountain in the background. It just looks amazing. I mean, pretty stellar in terms of eye appeal, and very happy to have gone ahead and added that. Next to that, we have a 1922 Godfrey Phillips Billy Meredith. This in a PSA 4 goes for 126. Here we have a PSA 10 Kareem Benzema. I looked at the back, looks like a fake, at least from what I can tell, goes for 132. Above that, we have a Masterpuss. This is a PSA 8 miscut. We did see a PSA 6, I think, recently run as well, so some high grades coming out of that. From what I know, these are hand cut, so miscuts, you know, interesting. Maybe they just did a poor job. Didn't really look that bad to me, I didn't think, but who knows. 2022 stained glass Bruno Fernandes, the Man United legend at this point, goes for 144, pop a 1 of 9. I do like the stained glass look, but in modern with case hits, it's, you know, all sort of up in the air in terms of what people like, but I do like the colors. I've never had one in hand though, so I'm not sure how it pops, but just seeing scans of it looks pretty good. We have PSA 3 Baggio Flash going for 144. Above that, Sticker Verlag Pele. We also have a Lionel Messi Instant going for 150. That's about where they've been. Haven't seen one of these run on PWCC in a bit. And then we have a PSA 9 Manchester United SP Authentic Ronaldo. Have a Lions made PSA 10. I'm guessing that this is just up here because it's PSA 10 Pele and people are going to pay for that. It's just sort of the way it is. 70 Bergman, nice little picture there. Oversized item of Pele, and a PSA 6 goes for 150 as well. This felt, I mean, moderately low, but at the same time it's a certified from Chronicles, and so I sort of get it. But back in the day when there was the gold craze going on, people would have, you know, bid this up a good bit. 150 for an out of 10 Ronaldo in a Manchester United kit, not terrible. But yeah, I mean, I'm not buying it, but at the same time, just throwing it out there. Abril Plassar, Encyclopedia de Football, Johan Cruyff, PSA 4. I've never seen this. I actually was wondering if it was somewhat refractory, because like it just, I mean, I guess it looks like an abstract painting almost, and I was trying to see if there was anything to it, but I think it just looks like that, and it's a very interesting one at that, I will say. Pop 1 of 1, none higher. Don't know why I haven't seen one of these before, but yeah, interesting nonetheless to be able to see that one. 2015 Frank Lampard out of 10 gold auto. We have a PSA 2 Platini going for 162. About the price. The back actually didn't look that bad. I feel like if you submitted that a lot more, you might actually get a higher grade than 2 at some point. But 1970 FAGR Pele goes for 162. We have a Karim Benzema Kaboom PSA 9 going for nearly the same, along with a Vinny. Feels like to me, I mean, I'm not a Kaboom guy, but I take that Benzema over the Vinny, not going to lie. We've seen a good bit of these go lately. David Beckham 96 Panini. This is an unlicensed item, but looks really good. And PSA 9 goes for 174. These keep going lower and lower, but we've seen like 4 or 5 run in the last couple months, so sort of makes sense. Block in PSA 7 with an eye appeal goes for 180. Somewhat low, but not, I guess, not terrible. Thomas Muller PSA 10 from 2009. We'll see another one later. This is the inaction going for 186. This Titulares, this is a PSA 8, so super high grade here of Jama Santos along with Gilmar. Pop 1 of 1, none higher, so I guess that's why it does that. At least in this one, you get full faces. You know, I do like that. Tom Davies 1 of 1 auto goes for 192. We have a top of football Ruud Gullit. This says rookie. From what I understand, this is second year. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I do believe it's second year. Pretty OC. PSA 6 goes for a pretty low price. 192 here. Last sale for the same grade was 324. Now it was best offer fixed price, so you know, take that into account. But before that, PSA 5 on the weekly last year did 264, so that seems to have come down a good bit there. Alex Jackson, PSA 4 from the 25 DC Thompson set. Did look this guy up because I wasn't too aware, but from what I could tell, a good winger. Scottish winger as well, and played in America at some point in like early 1920s. I think it was the year before this one, which I found interesting. Was a part of a team that beat England like 5-0 or something along those lines. Pretty insane to think about from a Scottish perspective. Being part Scottish myself, you know, it makes me proud. Jude Bellingham 2022-23 finest goes for 210. We have a Didi Jose Innocente from 56 that goes for 210 as well. Seems like a decent price. I mean, from what I see other Didis go for lately, it's a little bit later, but at the same time, anything sort of pre-58 is going to be pretty difficult to find. Beam Team Kylian Mbappe goes for 216, same as the Di Stefano PSA 7s. We see these almost every week, it feels like at this point. Miazza 3738, we see these every now and then. PSA Pop 1 of 3, just too higher, goes for 216. I thought this was super low, but I'm not really in touch with, you know, the ultra modern, and that is the man Lionel Messi. From what I understand, this is a case hit. Could be wrong, but I think I heard that somewhere. 234 for an out of 25 seems like a super low price. That would imply to me, at least, that basically non-Messis would go for almost nothing. Jude Bellingham Green Refractor, this is from UCL Japan, goes for 234. We have a PSA 10 Modric going for 240. Felt like a pretty strong price. I remember looking up the raw version of this card for the video we did last week, and I think that went for like $30. So, you know, pretty decent premium on the 10 there. We have a Tony Cruz here, a purple treble PSA 10 that goes for 240. Look this one up because, again, the request to look them up. So, you know, I'll go ahead and give it a peek. As we look here, this has always sort of been my complaint with treble, is you see a lot of reruns. I know there are reruns everywhere, but with treble, it's a lot higher percent than I've seen in the past for almost anything else. Nonetheless, it seems like an okay sale, I guess, compared to this SGC 9.5, but people don't really respect SGC in Modern. If we compare back to this PSA 9 that went for 152, it seems like a pretty poor sale, considering it's not even double a PSA 9, and 10s are super tough in this card. So interesting to note. I mean, still feels like a pretty decent price, you know, almost $250 for a purple treble, which, you know, if we went back and looked at the old sales, I'm pretty sure I saw one earlier raw, like back in 2022 for like $15. So it seems okay. This is a weird one. Garnacho and Endrick Leaf booklets. The Leaf stuff's getting out of hand, and, you know, to make it even crazier, you get that massive Beckett slab that you can, you know, basically make a table out of if you want to. Vinny Jr. Gold 2022 Optic here going for $252. R9 got a couple of them back to back, so at 1995-96 along with a rookie right here, both going for $252. Take your pick. I'd probably just take the rookie, but that's me. Frank Lampard, this felt super low, but I do know that this is, I'm pretty sure, a Man City jersey in here. I could be wrong on that, but that goes for $264. Definitely not Chelsea kit, so people don't really like that as much, but $264 isn't, you know, crazy in the flawless sphere. This was interesting. This goes for a good bit more than the Messi out of 25. Now, I think it comes down to kit, really. I mean, here you have PSG Messi compared to Sporting Ronaldo. People like the rookie throwback. While alternatively PSG, I think PSG, and honestly, I think even Inter Miami Messi stuff is going to be looked back at one day. Not the most fond. I think it's just going to be Barca or bust, basically, along with Argentina. Don't get me wrong, Argentina as well. But basically, Barca and Argentina, I feel like, are the real collectible Messi kits. PSG and especially Inter Miami, I think we'll see a card later, but Inter Miami, I just don't get the hype. I know it's the thing right now, and Topps is pushing it, and people are excited because it's America. Oh, there it is. There, actually, it's right here. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, again, like, 300 for this, like an out of 99 Topps Chrome from his 20th year, just in a Inter Miami kit. I don't get it. I don't get it. But maybe that's just me. I get that it's the thing of the moment, but not really a fan personally. Also, if we just want to keep on going with the craziness, I don't get this either. I know it's Barca kit Ronaldinho, so it looks good, but man, this is post-playing career. You guys gotta be better with. And I don't know, the people buying this probably aren't watching, but we have to, as a soccer community, be better than spending good money, because $300 in other sports is almost throwaway money. $300 in soccer can get you some good stuff. I say that a lot. I mean, we're halfway through this PWCC auction block. You can almost get into the top half of a weekly with $300, and people are spending it on post-playing career Ronaldinho. They'll make these cards forever, guys. If you want them, you can get them eventually. I know it's a PSA 10, but I mean, come on. Anyways, 2022 Pele Auto. Again, this isn't even as bad. Like, you're actually getting a Pele Auto here for the same price as this just random Ronaldinho post-playing career. I'm not a Leaf guy. I'm not a sticker guy. I'm not any of those, but I take this every single day of the week. I'd probably just peel off the sticker and just, keep it, but throw it on something else. Erling Haaland 2019 PSA 9. This was a really strong price. I'm pretty sure we've seen 10s go for like 600 lately, so a 9 going for 300 felt super strong. Speaking of super strong, this also did. And this was super soft. We saw one go for 500 last week or the week before. This is at 300. This would have done bonkers numbers back in the day when people were going crazy for team stuff. I find this interesting because right above it, right here, I know it's the white version, but a BGS 8 or an SGC 4, I know this one looks a little bit better, and I'd agree, but man, I think someone either overpaid on this or got a deal on this, one or the other. Pele Leaf Auto, again, not a great looking auto, goes for $324. We have a Jude 2020 Merlin Green going for $336. This we've seen tried to sell before. I think it's trying to sell again. So interesting to note. We have a Pele PSA 2. This is the supplemental Titulares album. So basically that's half of Pele right there, just sneaking on in. Gets $336 purely because of that. So pretty interesting. I did look that up just because I was curious. Last PSA 1 did 124 on Probstein, so super strong compared to that. PSA 1 back in the day did 200, and some 4s were doing 5 to 600. So I mean, a 2 at 336 feels pretty strong, I would say. Jude sticker auto there. We have a 57 Bruguera Di Stefano PSA 2 going for $350. I looked this one up because I was interested. Last one in a 1.5 did 192, and I wanted to point out that the colors on it were really solid, and that was earlier this month, so it feels like a pretty strong sale on this one. Yeah, I mean, really not a whole lot to add. An authentic in 2023 did $44, so it feels generally strong. We have a Topps Chrome Stadium Club Erling Haaland out of 25 orange. Took a peek at this one too, just again because I was interested. I actually like the photo. It's a pretty nice looking Erling Haaland, if you ask me. This goes for, what was it, like 300, 360? Sale before this last year was 625, and then in 2022 was 1,000. So of course we've come down from the highs, but at least from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like we found a bottom on some of these more modern cards. But yeah, I find that really interesting. I think that I see people paying a lot for prospects. I see people paying a lot for other prospects, second and third year stuff. It feels like Haaland's sort of getting left behind in terms of hobby hype. And I think that's just what Man City does to a player. If he was at Madrid, I feel like everyone would be all over him. He'd be the talk of the town. Instead, he's at Man City, so people almost just don't care. But yeah, I mean, seems like a decent price if you're an enjoyer of that set, that player, all that jazz. 2017 Luis Suarez Gold PSA 10. So, talking about Topps Chrome or Chrome Topps products, that's a pretty big one, presumably. We look back at some sales comps, could only find one, really. I thought we were going to find more for this, but apparently not. Tag 9 last year went for 207. So compared to that felt like a super soft sale. I don't know. From what I can tell, it seems like Topps Chrome probably peaked out last year. I know we saw the Messi gold start to go back down. It feels like this is starting to go back down. I mean, a Tag 9, you would assume a PSA 10 would do at least 3 times a Tag 9. I mean, typically PSA 10s do 3 times a PSA 9, so I think that's, safe to say. So you would expect like 600 on this, and it gets 360, so almost half. Found that interesting. I looked this up because people were asking, so, I'll look it up. 66 Pele here. We'll have another one later. I'm not too familiar with the set, but it gets a respectable number for a PSA 2 at 360 there. Breakaway Erling Haaland from 23-24. We have a PSA 10 Muller to match the one earlier. This almost does double the price of the in-action. I do like the picture a lot. Muller does have a lot of different rookies, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but the PSA 10s still do good numbers. This is a super high-grade Garrincha plus many other Brazilians from the 58 team and a PSA 7. We have a Billy Meredith from 1909, F&J Smith, PSA 6 going for 372, and a pop 1 of 2, 1 higher. This felt like a pretty random card to be up here, but it's only 384. Like, we're getting towards the top of the list this week, so it wasn't that heavy in the middle. You kind of have, somewhat random cards like this sticking out at 384. Another sort of random, I don't think I've ever heard of this guy, but, maybe that shows my ignorance. No matter the case, 400 for a sticker 1 of 1. This was an interesting one. We'll talk about why here in a second, but 468 for PSA 10 SP Authentic. Another Pele from the same album we saw earlier in a 3 going for 468. This David Beckham Merlin Sky Sports foil was an interesting one. You don't see these all too often, so I looked it up. This sale did 480, and before this, a PSA 8 last did, 468. So, basically the same exact price. Nothing too crazy to see there, but it has held up pretty well. Some of the earlier sales in lower grade did even higher numbers, but all in all, it seems like a pretty decent price still. R9, 94.95, and a PSA 8 goes for 516 there. Did take a look at that, and last sale was last year, 2023, for 782, then in 2022, 930, and obviously, going back to the booming days at 3,600 and 2,000, definitely down a good bit from there, but really hasn't found its bottom yet. Feels like R9 in general really hasn't found his bottom, which is interesting. I mostly chalk it up to him just having a lot of different rookies. He has a lot of options, and as someone that isn't crazily nostalgic for R9 and doesn't really collect R9, it does make it hard for me to even sort of enter, because they are still good prices. 516 on this isn't anything to scoff at, and, there are probably 2 to 3 other rookies at least that I would want before this one. So, it just makes it tricky, I think. Keeping it moving, we have a 7-8 Johan Cruyff Vanderhoot that goes for 528. Pretty respectable price considering his rookie PSA 8s probably go for 1,000-ish, maybe up to 2,000 depending on the sale, but feels pretty strong. Now, it is only 1 year of printing compared to his rookie that was printed over 2 years, so you got to take that into account. Supply is going to be a little different. But found that interesting. It is a really nice looking card as well, or sticker. Then we have a 64 Panini Calciatore Pele and a 2 with the Velita bat going for 576. Pop 1 of 5 is 6 higher, so super hard in high grade, and that's, about as good as you can expect, it seems. And this is why I found the other SP Authentic interesting, because you could either get a PSA 10 base for nearly 500, or you could get a out of 325 in a PSA 9. Sure, it's not a PSA 10, but still, feels like I'd rather go with this every single day of the week over this one. Now, I did look that one up. Yeah, so this, there is one comp in here where something got rerun. So a few of them, are actually real sales. I thought it was getting rerun consistently, but they're actually different certs for the most part. I thought that at 1,000, I remember in this weekly when one sold for 1,000, there was another similar Ronaldo next to it, and I was like, I'd rather have this than that. Well, apparently it's only like 500, maybe 600, so that makes it a lot more appealing in that regard. Now, if we do go all the way back, there are some high sales, but I did find it interesting that in 2015, these went for $10 or $30, which, definitely a nice little bump up there. So it's not like it's not accounted for that this is a pretty cool card, but I do like the color match out of 325. It's a high number, so people probably don't like that, but there are some other parallels, but it's not chock full of tons of them, right? And this is early career Ronaldo, 2003-2004 season. We have a 1902 Billy Meredith at work, PSA 1 going for $630 there. Pretty beaten up, but most of them are going to be pretty beaten up. So pop 1 of 5, 8 graded higher. Again, with the Leaf stuff, some Leaf stuff looks good. I just don't think that this Leaf stuff looks good. Like the booklets especially, they look so bland, but maybe that's me. I don't know. I especially don't like booklets and BGS slabs where it's just in a massive, massive slab. It's just terrible, but yeah, anywho, it goes for $720. Also going for $720 is a 78 Crack Maradona with an eye appeal top 15%. It looks really good. Registration's nice, pretty good centering. Generally it looks really, really nice. Comped it to 2s because I figured that would probably be more fair than a 1, considering the eye appeal grade and all that. Seems like a pretty good sale. We have actual 2s going for $670, which are lower prices. We have a 2 that goes for $1,000 back here, so, a little bit lower than that. But again, this is a 2, not a 1.5. And then a 2 recently did $919, and that's a pretty beaten up 2, right? Like, I'd probably rather have the 1.5 because it doesn't have all this yellowing. It's got nicer corners. Sure, this has got pretty good registration. I'm not beating that one up, but just something to think about. From my perspective, a totally random 1 of 1 Neymar going for $800. I understand the infatuation with 1 of 1s, but I really do wonder, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because there's plenty of out of 5s that I've considered buying that are from good sets that look really good, that have Neymar in either a Brazil or a Barca kit, and they're out of 5, so they're not 1 of 1s, but they're like $100, $200. Like, you can find good, like, really good sets, really nice Neymar cards for a couple hundred. Paying $800 for what is really just a random 1 of 1 of Neymar feels super strong to me, but that's sort of the state of 1 of 1s, I guess. We have a silver, I presume a silver bar for Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah, it says it down there. Goes for $840. Seems like a pretty good price considering the silver bar is probably, like $20-$30, I think. It's not anything all too crazy. So almost all the value there just for Cristiano Ronaldo and the Eminent set. PSA 2 Estampas. Pretty good looking Estampas as well. The centering, you can tell that the border gets pretty big down here, so it's skewed, don't get me wrong, but the registration and colors are pretty good. Goes for $840. Looked at comps. Last one was $1225, so down from the last comp, but again, this is a comp in which we are looking at a best offer. So best offers are always going to go higher than auctions. Last auction was, $576 back here, but I think that's a worse looking copy for sure. So somewhere in the middle. This went for $690, which is pretty egregious because this actually isn't even a 78 card. This is a 79. PSA got it wrong, but it still went for nearly the same. So that's, interesting, I guess. Above that, PSA 8 Monday Chrome went for $870. Seems like a pretty strong sale. These typically lean anywhere between $700 and $1,000, so this is probably closer to the $1,000 mark. This Cruyff was, we talked about this last week, but I'll just look at it for a second. Really disappointing comp, but if you look at the card, I think it's a PSA 1 or a 2. When you look at the back, there's this E and Verlog's missing a lot. Also, this Cerubier over here starts to look a little faded in different parts, and so it's a nice removal, don't get me wrong, but I do think it's removed, and it gets a 5 grade, which isn't what it should get for removal. So if you judge it as a PSA 5, super soft sale. If you judge it as the PSA 1 or 2, it probably is. It's a super strong sale, so it depends on how you want to look at it. Kaboom Erling Haaland PSA 10 goes for over $1,000. We have a Vinny, and this is just egregious. Like, who did this, Blue auto on, like, a blue background, and you can only see the auto on him. It's such a terrible auto. It's so bad. It still gets a good number, though. 1,100 there. If I was a collector, I'd rather have the card. Some situations I'd rather have, an autograph card. I do like autos, don't get me wrong, in-person autos aren't bad, but that's a terrible example of one. PSA 578 Crack Maradona here goes for $1,560. Didn't take a look at this just because we've already looked at a lot of Maradonas, and we'll look at another one here in a second, but pretty soft sale, at least comparatively to prior sales, and the same grade of the other 78 Crack. Now, of course, there's a sort of multiplier going on there, but even if you account for the multiplier, it's still a soft sale. But super OC, so I could sort of understand maybe that plays a factor as well. People buying a decently high grade item of this probably don't want it that off center. I sort of get that. 58 Pele Matchbook goes for $1,600. We have a PSA 2 Aquarella that goes for nearly $2K. Typically, these have been around $1,500. I think the eye appeal is definitely boosting it a little bit here, and that's actually a top 5%, which is interesting. Make of it what you will. PWCC grading a card that PSA is grading that's sort of hard to grade, that people don't even trust in the first place. So do you trust PWCC? Do you trust PSA? Do you just trust yourself? You probably should, but nonetheless, 2019 Erling Haaland patch auto, it goes for $19.20. Feels kind of light compared to some other sales I've seen of these types of items, but at the same time, I guess it is a PSA 8. It's, horizontal. It's got nothing on the patch. It's a sticker auto, so I get the other side of it as well. This Fulbito disc 1981 Maradona does nearly, well, actually a little over 2K. Took a peek back, and I'm not sure if this is the same cert. I'm always too nosy in terms of wanting to know if it's the same cert and how that goes. So yeah, it is the same cert. Someone bought this for $4,300, but sort of during a vintage boom. So being down 50%, sure, it's not the greatest. Don't get me wrong, but in terms of buying a high of vintage and selling now, it's probably not terrible. And as you can tell, they don't sell all too often. So interesting to note. I do find it also intriguing that PSA used to have it sort of slab like that, and now they have it more vertical, which is, I guess, nice looking. I don't mind this either, to be honest, but, no matter the case. And then we get into the top 6 here. So we have a PSA 5 Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks. It goes for $26.40. Feels like a decent price for a PSA 5. Definitely not stellar grade, but still a great card. This was a super strong sale. I don't know if I suspect maybe we see it get rerun at some point, but maybe not. I know Messi stuff, some stuff, it seems to be running a bit, but this would be a huge run. I looked back, and basically last sale was $12.60. Now the subgrades are a little different in the sense that this is a 9.5, 9.5, 10, 9, and the other one was just 9.5s across the board, but equals out. And that went for $12.60. Last one before that on Best Offer did $2,200. And then if we start getting back towards the sort of booming days, right, we have, that says 10K, but I don't even believe that 10K because, we have 2, 3, 4 around it. So yeah, back during the crazy days, don't get me wrong, 8K, 16.5. But nonetheless, that does a super strong number there at $3,200. I also sort of wonder on something like this, if you have any intel, let me know. I always sort of think that the Barca Campeão is supposed to be centered in terms of the top centering being equal to the left centering over here. And that's really off. I think BGS just doesn't even consider centering really on this card since it has no borders. They just say everything's a 9.5. So I would be interested if that's, really a 9.5 center. Because if you look at the back, it's pretty similar, right? Look at the front, it's, quite a ways off. So that's just something to consider when you look at those. BGS 8, now this is one where I feel like, I'd easily take this over that. You can have the 71 bis and a grade and a half lower, or you can have the team set in a 9.5. Yeah, I'd take the 71 bis without a shadow of a doubt. But it feels like a somewhat soft sale here. I will say, I do wonder when it's older certs, I understand the BGS slab, but when it's a new cert, 16.7 mil, that's really new. I wonder why it's in a BGS slab, right? Like, you definitely know at this point that people like PSA on that type of a card. Back in the day, I understand it because, BGS was the grader, but that's intriguing. That brings us up into the top 3. We looked at it last week, and these were some heavy hitters. So we have a 1-of-1 white box Eminence. I'm not as much a fan of the white box, black box, all the boxes, whatever they are, because it's not actually an authentic release, but gets 9,000 here. Did look it up just to see if it had sold before, and it actually did, which I found interesting. So this was a sale. It sold for $13,000 last year on PWCC Premier, so someone took a little bit of a hit there over a time in which, soccer's relatively kind of stayed up. So I do find that interesting. I think a lot of the spaces, and this has been the case forever, I do think a lot of the spaces that people go to almost hide just still end up getting slaughtered in some way or another. Now, this isn't much of a slaughter. Down like 30-40% is not terrible, but during a time where other things have stabilized or gone up, it's not great, right? One thing I did find interesting when I looked at this, one, it's encased. I'd rather have an encased one with the, you know, sticker still on it than a PSA 6. I mean, come on. So it definitely didn't help in that regard, grading that. But I also do find it interesting that down here you can kind of see that there was different threads sort of poking out. There's one here on the right, one here on the left. And when you go look at this one, I don't know, maybe they like tucked it in underneath, but basically you only see like a little part of it, and I find that interesting as well. I'm wondering if it's just tucked down there, or if maybe they cut it. I don't know. I guess that also has something going on. I didn't look and see if that was the case up here. Yeah, it looks like it's still there. So I don't think they messed with the blue, but they messed with the yellow, which, yeah, they probably should have just left it in there as is, but what are you going to do? Then we have the red and blue back from the 1970 World Cup here of Pele and a PSA 8, pop 1 of 2, none higher. So these have gone from a PSA pop 3 to a 6 lately in terms of total graded, which of course they're going to go up over time, but it was a pretty hefty sort of move. Nonetheless, this still does a really strong price. So 10.2K, the highest sale we've seen prior was a PSA 7 that did 6K. So, you know, seems relatively fair compared to the PSA 7, and yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. I mean, super high grade, super rare back. Also, I mean, Pele 1970 wins the World Cup. It's almost anything you could ask for, but you could have asked for something maybe a little bit better. I don't know. I'd be interested what you guys think between these two, which one you'd want. You know, I hate to be a vintage homer, but I'd probably go with this one on the right. The patch, at least from what I can tell on this one, isn't associated with anything in particular, but I think it is also at least worn by Pele. I could be wrong on that. The wording's super vague, so it's hard to figure out. But nonetheless, this goes for 13.8K, which is super, super high. And a 9.5 grade with a 10 auto is a really nice auto. It is obviously a great-looking patch. I mean, people can make a big deal about where the patch is from, this, that, and the other. But really, patches, especially a patch like this, is for the aesthetics of the card. Like, that is a really, really nice look. Now, of course, if you'd make tons of cards like this, then it's not special. But how often are you going to see something like this? Almost never. So I do get it from that regard. Did actually find some comps. Now you kind of got to pick through, but basically there was a 1 of 1 with a more playing days sort of photo that went for 25K on Golden in 2022. And then back, way back, I sort of dug through some of these, 5-year-old, 6, 7-year-old comps, and there was a 1 of 1 in here somewhere. There it is. So it's a 1 of 1, a 4-color logo patch that went for almost $1,000 back in 2017. So wasn't anything to mess with back then. Still a pretty decent number, I would say. A 14x from then to now, which is pretty hefty, but it isn't anything crazy in soccer, I will say. But that does it for this week. I thought it was a pretty good week, top to bottom. Really top heavy, but still some good stuff in between. We'll take a small peek at next week and see what we got. If I can find it, there we go. And yeah, starting from the top, I know there's some goodies. So we have a PSA 2 Alifa. There's a green Lionel Messi treble. I do like the greens in the sense that, like, I hate the PMG comparison, but there are out of 10 PMGs that are green. These are out of 10 trebles that are green. So I guess I sort of get it. This one already getting a good number at 3,400. We have a PSA 8 Cristiano Ronaldo sticker at 750 already. We have a PSA 4 Estampas. Now, it is a really high grade Estampas, pop 1 of 3.5 higher, but it isn't a great looking one, I will say that. Galactic Messi, Kaboom Mbappe. We have a Titulares Pele along with a color 2014 Prism Messi and a Kaboom Messi. So a lot of goodies up there if you're a modern person. Jaume Santos, we get to see another rookie go, which is pretty interesting because we did see one go just last week, actually. PSA 7 Cristiano Ronaldo. Beyond that, nothing too crazy. I guess we have a 2014 there. We also have a Fubito that we saw earlier in our PSA 1 going there. And yeah, lots of goodies. See, that auto looks a little bit better. I'll give it that. That looks nice, right? But yeah, that's going to do it for me. If you enjoyed, of course, do make sure to leave a like. Would appreciate it greatly. Any thoughts you had on some of the items you thought sold high, low, or maybe something you snagged, would love to hear about it and comment down below. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.